public-private sport. Most of the sport in the marketplace is private. Over 80% of all sport in the marketplace is private, and less than 20% is public, but there is a great deal of public sport. It's a great opportunities for us to work, to get involved, to support local communities. But most of the employment, most of the opportunity, now on the collegiate side, the collegiate athletics side, most of your collegiate athletic programs that employ the largest number of people are of the public nature. So there's a lot more large public institutions that employ large athletic departments. So even though they're on the public side and they employ the larger majority, the overwhelming majority of sport available in the marketplace for you and I to work at is of the private nature. And because of that, they're very economically oriented, whereas these guys are very service oriented. And they have different target markets, and so their target markets are largely individuals that can affordability, they can afford the product, they can afford the service, they can afford the event, they can afford the information. Therefore, the target markets of those who serve the public are the less fortunate. Now that does not mean they don't serve those that can afford it, and that does not mean that they don't work with programming for the less fortunate. So one of the mindsets that you have to be careful of is that you don't say it's either or. Many times it can be a both and. We have all kinds of programs on the private side to support those that are less fortunate. When I was the director of the YMCA in Albany, Georgia, we had a scholarship program, and we funded memberships to over 1,000 individuals, most of them are young men and women, in our children's programs that could not afford an individual membership to the YMCA. So we did a capital campaign every year to raise money. It was over $1 million the last 2 years I was there. To be able to afford over 1,000 scholarships for individuals that were less fortunate. And that's just one of a gazillion examples. Of course, we just looked at every one of our professional sport franchise teams that we enjoy either have a foundation that do community service work, or they fund heavily other foundations and funds that already are available. So there's no shortage of us working to serve and support the less fortunate. However, our financial model is to be able to make money. And then when we make money, we can pay more, we can expand more, we can do more. We have opportunities to grow and blossom and establish more sites and hire more people and do so much more. So our economic models are different. We're funded by the private sector. Although we do take public monies, these people are also funded by the public sector, but they also take a lot of private monies. I mean, on that side of the coin, they do have fees for all of their events and fees for all their programming, but that price point, that price discovery is so much lower and so much more reasonable for your inner city people and your rural people and the people that often seem disenfranchised and less fortunate. Now, going through the course of time, these two entities have had to work together on many instances to make sport happen, and that public-private partnership is best represented in the form of the public buildings, stadiums, arenas, and convention centers. You can call it a venue. And then these folks rent it. They rent the usage. So it would be your franchises or your portable sport. So your franchise is like a professional hockey team or a soccer team or a basketball team. they need to have facilities. And so it's the community that builds the facilities, it's the community that funds the venue or venues, and then they rent the facilities for 5 and 10 and 15 years at a time. The most larger communities or metropolitan areas will have a convention center. We used to have the Bottle Center, now it's called something else. The Artisanville at the Palmetto Expo Center. Is owned by the public. So the public funds those, they build those, they're designed to create entertainment options for your local community, servicing your local community. And then portable sport, the stuff that comes in, does a day or two or a week and then leaves, they rent those facilities. So your local convention centers or metropolitan centers are scheduling the concerts and the shows, and then the ice skating comes through, and the mud trucks come through, and the dirt bikes come through, and then professional tennis will come through and do exhibition matches, and they just schedule all kinds of entertainment options, much of which can be sport, it's not all sport. But that's your portable sport that actually contracts with the different types of convention centers in the communities. Most of this relationship is really centered around large-scale professional franchises renting facilities. And that's part of the situation I want to kind of delve into a little bit more today. So in these situations, these rental arrangements are usually multi-year leases. Like the Greenville Drive, when they first came here, theirs was 10 years, for example. And that was renewed. There's shared resources. So a city, in order to really bend over and assist a franchise, has to have a commitment of 5, 7, or 10 years. That's why the multi-year lease, it's a significant lease right here. And for us to commit to really doing the venue right, we have to know that the franchise is willing to stay there 7 or 10 years, for example. Community organizers try to press for longer leases, and franchise owners often will try to press for shorter leases. It's a bargaining chip, but you won't see 1-year lease, 2-year lease in these kind of scenarios. It didn't used to be even 5-year leases. It used to have to be 7 or more years. Occasionally they come down to 5 years, but the multi-year lease is a commitment from the franchise to the community. So it demonstrates a level of commitment. To the community or the municipality. Second thing that's built into those arrangements is a shared resources. It's basically shared monies. And so what happens is, on this side, they have to take care of the facility. So there's maintenance. And that would be stuff like, well, the roof, the responsibility of the physical plant, the building, the roof, the significant structures, the systems, HVAC systems, the water, sewage, those are called systems. So the significant utilities and systems and the physical plant must be maintained, and the maintenance of that, because the stadium is operated and managed by the public, so it's going to be your local government. They actually hire people. The people that work at the stadium doing care for that are actually local government employees who are assigned to do the maintenance there. So that's one of the shared resources, is that, hey, I'll come use your stadium, but you've got to provide some people to keep it up. Okay? And then in trade for that, we share the parking revenue. So we charge for parking. Half of the lots The lots around the stadium are owned by the city, and so maybe it's a 50-50 share of the parking revenue. So the city gets some of the revenue from the parking, and the owners get 50% of that. Or maybe it's a split in the ticketing, maybe it's 70% to the owners and 30% to the city. There's gonna be percentage variations there. The city will always negotiate for some of the resource revenues because they're paying for the maintenance of the facilities. They generally try to give a fairly good rent arrangement. Obviously, it's a lot of money, so a franchise might pay $25,000 a month or $30,000 a month or $50,000 a month, whatever that number is. If you rent an apartment today, and if you rent a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you're gonna pay $800 or $1,000 for an apartment. These folks are gonna pay $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a month for the rental situation. So the franchise has to be able to generate the money to pay for the rent. The community has to be able to generate enough money to pay their employees going there and hopefully draw a dime or two out of that. So these kind of shared opportunities, the sale of or the renting of luxury boxes or luxury suites, because they're built into the facility, so you have all these luxury boxes. Remember Sport for the Rich, we tore out the cheap seats and we built a luxury suites and luxury boxes, and they're permanent. So there's a permanent structure there. It's the luxury box. If you go to the Bon Secours Wellness Arena right now, there's at the top bowl, there's no less than 30 luxury suites all around it, and those are rented out on a case-by-case basis. They can be split, or the banks and some of the organizations might rent them for 3 and 5 years at a time. So there's lots of different rental arrangements for the luxury suites. So a portion of this is going to be subrogated, and maybe it's also 75-25. Portion of that majority of that goes to the franchisee, and some smaller portion goes back to the community. And so you need to have good CFO negotiators on both sides, because they know how much it costs to manage the facility. The insurance on this is probably the premium on this is several $100,000 a year, and they're going to provide a significant amount of what's called the property insurance. Now these guys will provide the what's known as the liability insurance. So if something happens property-wise, property claims or property damage, their insurance would cover it. If there's negligence or theft or somebody gets hurt, they're responsible for it. So again, those insurances have to be what's called subrogated, and then you have to have policies that overlap, like a gap insurance, and they cover each other. So the city says, hey, we'll provide you this level of insurance, but you've got to provide us that. And franchisee says, oh, okay, good. Well, that insurance may cost the city $250,000 a year because that's a significant liability. It may cost this guy a couple $100,000 a year because it's significant that there's just so many people passing through. And the reality is, you have so many people passing through, you're going to have accidents, you're going to have injuries, you're going to have sickness, somebody's going to get hit by a ball, somebody's going to trip and fall, you're going to have a couple heart attacks. It just normally happens with the statistical anomalies of that, when you have thousands of people passing through your turnstiles on a regular basis. And so their insurance package is huge, and they help cover each other. And so there has to be some monies the city generates, but the franchise, in order to rent that and really see it as a good venture, they have to see that there's an opportunity to produce viable income and profitability. Remember, their bottom line is this. So they've got people like me that are constantly running the numbers and looking at all the scenarios and factoring all this in. You're looking at the marketplace, you're looking at how is baseball in Greenville, how is soccer, how is hockey, what is the response to the marketplace? Is there not enough competition or too much? Does the college universities in the area withdraw from that? Can we get some local TV deals? All that's factored in to help us determine, is it a good use to stay here for 10 years, or do we need to move on? And all of that is worked out in your multi-year rental lease arrangement, and then you're constantly assessing, or a better word is evaluating, ongoing. For some organizations that I do financial work, we evaluate ongoing. I'm looking at financial statements almost every day for one of 2 or 3 organizations who evaluate the financial status and position continuously to make sure that we're not making the wrong decisions, we're making good decisions on an annual basis, a regular basis. Do we need to make course corrections based on what's going on in the marketplace? So an ongoing assessment. And for those of you that get really good at this, they pay you a lot of money to do that because you're the ones that make the recommendations and decisions to either cut bait and go somewhere else or stay and pour more into it, and et cetera, et cetera. A couple of factors that also influence this. Many times cities today are more willing to help build new facilities, new venues, or upgrade new venues. And some of the best ways they can do it is to contribute additional land or contribute additional parking services or improve the utilities. To enhance the overall operations over here. So again, the franchise owner gets a water bill every month. And if 50,000 people use the bathroom in there, based on the number of games they had, their water bill is probably 10, 15, 20,000 or more dollars a month. So if a city can improve just the utilities, say 10%, well, that greatly improves the situation over here. So a lot of times, instead of just demanding a brand new facility and saying, hey, you either need to build me a new facility or else, a smart franchise owner and a smart the public officials will come back and say, well, we think we can improve some of the parking, maybe expand some of it. And by adding parking, that's more spots that can be paid for, or by improving the parking, you can actually increase what you charge for parking. So if you drive downtown to Greenville, if you park in the outer skirts, it's $5. The closer you get, it's $10. It's $15. It's $20. But if you have more parking that's closer to the venue, you can charge more. And so both the franchise owner and the city owner says, yeah, well, we can make an extra 5 or 10% on, let's say, parking generates $1 million a year. If I can add a 10% to that, that's another 100,000. We split that, it's 50,000. And so, yeah, so if you can enhance by increasing the level of parking, the spaces, or bring it closer, maybe you're going to tear down a couple of buildings here and we just turn into parking, and now I can generate another $50,000 a year over 12 months just in parking revenue. Well, the city looks at that and the franchise owners look at that and we go, yeah, let's make this happen. So one of the ways that cities, the public, can accommodate franchise owners is to enhance parking, enhance utilities. If we can work out a better arrangement with the power, gas, light, water, sewage, trash, there's any number of fiber optics, cable providers, if we can work out an arrangement where it improves the situation for the franchise owner by improving the utilities in some way, shape, or form, even just one utility to a venue, then everybody wins on that. And by them saving more money, we both make more money. And so community organizers are always looking at how can we improve the situation without just building a new venue. Now, if new facilities are needed so the city can provide more land, maybe they can provide more land here. And so now we can build a new office building for the headquarters office. And then we can give them, the president, and some of those additional parking over here. Or maybe we can build a professional workout facility here for the team, or training facility. So lots of things like that can be done in order to accommodate some of the, I wouldn't say requests or demands, but some of the needs of an ever-increasing climate in professional sport. And therefore, the franchise owners don't have to threaten to move, because a lot of times when you move, it's also a costly move. It's a costly move on both sides. And so it is costly for us to pack up and leave, and it also hurts, it really hurts the emotional capital you build up in a local community. Your commitment to a community is greatly distressed and broken, and you don't ever want to come across looking like that you're just all about the dollar, even though in most part it is important that it becomes about the dollar. But there is a level of commitment to your community that's vital to the success of your organization. Second thing that this relationship needs to be able to produce is a great deal of the media. And so the more that the local community can get the media to be supportive of the franchise, the more the games can be broadcast, the radio shows, the TV shows, the positive reporting by local mainstream and alternate medias, maybe even some additional cable. And so having a relationship with the medias enhances your cable broadcast. We're talking about minor league sports for a minute here now, but then also for the major league sports. And then those turn out to be paid ventures. And so obviously the more media coverage we get, it's free media. If they're talking about your franchise every night on the sports channel, the local sports channel, if the newspaper is writing about you, if the local journal is highlighting you and doing human interest stories, and so all of that is free marketing that you don't have to pay for. So a lot of times the community organizers can help influence the medias to be able to work more with the franchises. Now there's a part of them that wants to. Promoting sport helps sell the medias, but then it can create opportunities for maybe some additional cable television games or some more broadcast rights arrangements which produce revenue back into the franchise, and maybe some of that is split. There are opportunities to share the revenue as well. And so the public arena has a lot of influence on the success of the private franchise owner. So it's always in the best interest of the franchise owner to make great relationships with the public officials. Most franchise owners are very close to their public officials. That would be publicly elected mayor and city officials in a local setting. On a more state level, it could be the senators or the House reps, the governor, the governor's office, some of those kinds of officials. There are tax opportunities that can be generated out of that, but when you're trying to leverage a significant asset on either side, particularly on this side, you're trying to leverage an asset, whether it's an established team or a fairly new franchise, it is important that you curry favor with those necessary officials because they influence so many aspects of the business. And unfortunately, sometimes what happens is then you get to see a lot of lobbying behind the scenes, and that's where they violate James chapter 2, which is the perfect application here. Now, you have to still build positive, healthy relationships with the necessary integers and people that have an effect on our businesses. So you can do all this and not accept lobbies and not disenfranchise people and not violate James chapter 2. So you can do this and do this well and do this righteously and not violate James chapter 2, or you can do this unrighteously and violate the code of the Lord, and then bad things happen. Got so much here. I think I want to do one more thing, then we'll end. Now, the ongoing costing